Welcome everybody to our fourth discussion panel. So we're really excited today because we're going to be talking about equity and accessibility. And we have some great guest speakers here with us today. But before we begin, I am going to present to you our moderator for our discussion, who is none other than the amazing Neil Danny. So Neil Danny is actually founder of Chorus Music Academy. He's also a producer, an artist, and engineer. He's also the director, the musical director for Moksha Canada. And we're so happy to have his expertise with us here today. So everybody, let's give it up for Neil Danny.
Oh, thank you so much, Nadia, for that awesome introduction. And I'm looking forward to speaking to our panelists today. We have amazing panelists, and we're super excited to not only introduce them, but speak with them about the topic of today, which is equity and access. So let's get right to it. I'd like to introduce our first panelist. This is Asma Khan. Asma Khan works as a community outreach coordinator at a local hospice in Mississauga, conducting outreach and education around hospice palliative care. Asma has a background in pharmacy from Pakistan and a master's from USA in pharmacy and administrative sciences. She has studied addictions and community services in Canada and has been active in the field of social services since 2009. Asma has also worked as research coordinator on a cancer screening study in South Asians, a project conducted by the University of Toronto. She also facilitates support groups with the HEAL Network, a program by Catholic Family Services of Peel Dufferin, working with mothers and kids who have witnessed abuse. Asma is passionate about working with diverse women and families and is an active volunteer at Malton Women Council. She speaks on health and social issues through South Asian media in Peel. So it's with great pleasure that I would like to welcome Asma Khan.
Okay, thank you, Neil, and thank you, everybody. And it's a pleasure to, being here, and I feel humble. So whatever you said, I couldn't believe that I did all this. Anyways, so yeah, so.
It's a lot. You've accomplished a lot and done a lot of amazing things. So we're really looking forward to speaking with you and gaining insights about this. If you don't mind, how did you get involved with pharmacy? Like when you started out, what made you decide that you wanted to pursue pharmacy?
Okay, I was in Pakistan then. I was raised in the Middle East and then in Pakistan, and I did my college and university in Pakistan. I was always attracted to health sciences. I don't know why, because I think my mom always used to talk about medications, because I have 3 other siblings and all 4 of us are a cesarean section. So, we would always talk about all these things, and, health is a major thing. It's global, right? So it was talked about, and you had, in my family, both sides, mom and dad, we have, doctors and people in the healthcare field. So I think I got it from there. And I was personally interested in learning more about healthcare and medication and helping people and all that. My friends always in the US used to call me 1-800-ASMA. So I was always the helpline since as a child, right? So I think, that's how I got into pharmacy, finished my bachelor's there. I worked at a hospital. I worked in a pharmaceutical, Bristol Myers. And then I went to the US to, for further education. So do a master's, work there, got married to a fat guy. Sorry, I called my husband a fat guy, sorry. But then we moved to Pakistan, and then we migrated to Canada. But when we came here, I did not pursue pharmacy because I'm not a community pharmacy person. I am a pharmaceutical organization person, like a, industry. So, but I don't know, I went back to college here in Canada, studied addictions and community services, and I think my heart was towards community services. So when I had that opportunity for my placement, I picked domestic violence, and I picked community services, and that's how I got into social services. And I'm very happy where I am. Yeah, it's very fulfilling. It may be exhausting sometimes, but it's very fulfilling. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I can imagine definitely that it's very exhausting, especially during times like this when we're living in a pandemic and otherwise as well, right? Health is something that is vital to everybody. and everyone is affected by it. So thank you for dedicating yourself to that, because that's something that we all need and all really appreciate.
Thank
Now on
you.
the topic, no, my pleasure. On the topic of equity, what is health equity and how is it related to social determinants of health?
Okay, so I'll try to use very simple language. So in simple terms, you can say that health equity is basically, it's the concept of like when every person has an equal opportunity to achieve their optimal health, right? It does not mean that everybody gets equal health. It means that everybody, has the right or access to, like has the access to like equal access to resources to maintain their health and improve their health. Again, if there are differences in this and people are not do not have equal opportunity or equal access to resources, that's called health inequity, which is not just, which is not fair, and which is not acceptable. So basically, coming back, health equity, when everybody gets that equal opportunity, to or equal access to resources to achieve their health, that is health equity. And uh, a social, how is it related to social determinants of health? We need to understand what social determinants of health are, right? So social determinants of health, basically, they are factors. They may be social, they may be economic, they may be political as well. They provide you, or they create the conditions in which we live. They create conditions in which we work, we play, we learn. So, these are all social determinants. Social determinants can be income, they can be housing, job opportunities, education, literacy, cultural practices, diversity, um, access to health services. They are all social determinants. So there is a direct relationship between social determinants of health and health equity. And I can give you, some stories around it, around, say, income, right? So I have this, I can tell you the story about two females, both single mothers. So one was a low income mother, single, living with two kids. She had her own mother in the house who was sick again, and then there's another female, single mother, two kids, but higher income, stable job. So both were getting letters from the ministry to get tested for, cancer, cervical colorectal cancers, right? The mother with the high income got the opportunity, had the time to go and get herself tested. She was diagnosed of first stage, I think it was breast cancer. She got the treatment on time. So she was treated. But the other one who did not have that opportunity, I would not say opportunity, but not the time, because she was juggling between two jobs and all that. So she could, when she, one day, and when she went to the washroom and she found some blood, stains in her clothes, she rushed to the doctor. She was diagnosed of fourth stage colorectal cancer, and it was hard to treat. So I don't know what happened after that, because I was disconnected from the, but this is a social determinant, income, right? And juggling between jobs and all that, right? And then housing, and then when I call about, like job opportunity is also social determinant, job opportunity and job security. And I can tell you so many stories for people to understand it in simpler terms, right? Immigrants, I know somebody who was an immigrant from, I think, India or Pakistan, came here, got a great job, but lost the job because that unit closed and all that. And that person never got a decent job again. Used to drive Uber, used to deliver pizzas. He was a great IT person, very well known back home, but no job security here, lost everything, started suffering from diabetes, and now he has mental health issues. So, and again, culture, practices, race, gender, these are all social determinants of health. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that really opens your mind up to all the different factors, right? Because I didn't think about it like that. And that's very true, that not only is it opportunity, but there's so many different factors in terms of the income you make. Sometimes it's not even income. A lot of times we may think this is an income-based opportunity that people may have, or an income-based advantage, but it's not even so much the income as it is, if you're juggling two jobs, just the perspective of time, regardless of how much money you may be sitting on, what's your schedule like? What responsibilities do you have? If you're a single mom with two kids, you're not only juggling the two jobs, but you're juggling between the two kids and making food, and there's so many different things. But it's really important to find a way to get that same level of access or that same level of opportunity, so that it doesn't get to a stage where it's stage 4 versus, you know, someone being at stage 1. You're absolutely right. And thank you for sharing all those factors. Really, really eye-opening. In the context of health equity, where does our healthcare system stand, and what are some of the strengths and opportunities?
Well, our biggest strength, and I'm not a great expert on that, but our biggest strength in Canada, I would say our OHIP system is a big strength. You know, it's a huge strength because I've lived in the US as well, and I've seen people struggling that. So if I compare, you know, I see that Canadian system is pretty strong, and, you know, here in Ontario, the OHIP, you know, it covers a lot. And the other thing is, I think from last year, January or something, I think, yeah, so it's now, through the Ministry of Health, we have prescription drugs for free for kids 0 to 25, people from 0 to 25 years. And then again, for seniors, we have so many facilities. We have the ODP. So I see that as a strength as well. We also see the biggest, you know, one of the biggest strengths is we are acknowledging the importance of this issue. So we are acknowledging that, you know, there are health inequities or disparities that needs to be addressed, which is a huge strength, I would see, which will, you know, is bringing up so many opportunities as well. I would say, because I work in outreach and education, and it's been so many years, I think a lot of money spent on that, on education and outreach, which is amazing. And not only, you know, we provide people with resources, we do a lot of information sessions in the community. And, you know, they are not only in English, because when we talk about, you know, immigrants and different languages and cultures and people coming from different countries and all those barriers, right, the culture and language barriers, all these resources now are translated into so many languages. And then these workshops or sessions are delivered in so many languages. Like a person like myself who speaks multiple languages, I deliver sessions not only in English, but Urdu, Hindi, and my broken Punjabi as well. So we are able to reach out to so many people and help so many people, right? I've done a lot of grief support groups in the past, South Asian, right? I've you know, established partnership with faith places, and I've delivered all these workshops there, and it is amazing, you know. It is when people come to you, and because they understand the message, the whole objective is, you know, when you're able to deliver your message to the other person. If you're not able to deliver the message properly, you know, all this is of no use, I would say.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Yeah, the main thing is delivering that message so people can understand it. And I think you do such a great job of that. You know, I love that you said in the beginning as well, I'm going to use very simple terms, because being a professional, you know, when you are at that level of your craft or your industry or your profession, it's very easy to, you know, just use the terms that you're very accustomed to, but everybody else may not be accustomed to. But the greatest thing for the general public is to have those terms that make, you know, have them easily understand what the message is. Because if we get caught up in terminology, some people, I know myself included, probably would have a lot of these things go over our head. So thank you for doing this in such a way that it's open to so many people to understand. And I'm sure you've provided a lot of insights to our viewers. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And then, you know, stories, especially stories, when you tell people about real life stories, that is very helpful. Yeah. Even very for everybody. True. I mean, if, yeah, to understand. Yeah.
And I think for us as humans, it also gives it gives a personal connection, right? It lets you almost feel it more. You can relate back to yourself. And I think for people, that's such an important thing. You can put that in that situation in your own shoes, and you can kind of see it from where your perspective in life is. And it just gives you a little bit more of that connection. And in that way, I think it gets instilled a little bit more. So once again, thank you so much. That was an amazing explanation. And I'm sure that it opened a lot of viewers' ears and eyes. Does anybody have any questions for Asma Khan?
Okay. Anu, you go ahead. Okay. Thank you, Asma, for sharing that amazing insight, and especially using simple terminology to explain health equity, inequity, and social determinants of health. My question to you is about data collection. So how different organizations, when they serve their clients and community members, they collect data, they collect information. So what's the importance of collecting socio-demographic data in providing equitable services to the service users and in removing those barriers to the services? So how important it is?
See, I would say it's very important because, like I said, I am not a data person. When I was young, I used to, not like data at all. But now I see the need because, see, when we are serving somebody as a health service provider, it's not about me, right? It's about the person I am providing the service to. So what is their need, right? So when you get all these data, it's easy to do a needs assessment. So like in my existing work, I remember we used to collect data about, you know, gender and, area where you're living, income level and all that. But now we're getting data about ethnicity, language, faith, right? I do run a lot of support groups, and then you design our evaluation sheets and survey monkeys and all that. Now we are talking about how many years you've been living in Canada. When I do my circle of life or grief groups, do you go to a faith place? Faith is important when it's end of life, right? So, faith place, are you connected to a faith place? What is your age bracket? Who do you go for support when you are in a situation? So this basically, helps us to do like a needs assessment. And when you have that information about the need of a community or a population or a person, right, you are able to help better. You can give that example that, one shoe doesn't fit everybody. If my shoe size is 6 and Neil is 9 and Anu is like 7 and we all get size 9, would it fit me and Anu? No, it won't fit, right? So again, like in my existing work, we always tell our clients that we have a plan, a care plan for everybody, but it's not like one prescription for everybody because every family is different. Every family is unique. Every family's needs are unique. So we have to kind of, tailor it according to their needs. So data is very important here.
Thank you so much. And I think it also, when you gather that information, it also allows a service providing organization to provide more holistic services to the clients and not just focus on what they are presenting with. Perhaps they're presenting with a mental health issue, but because of these social determinants of health, there might be other factors which is ultimately contributing to their mental health. So I think it also helps in having a more holistic approach to the service delivery.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for your questions, Anu, and for your insights, Asma Khan. Next, we have Nadia Dolce, who's going to be asking a few questions.
So my question, seeing that today we were in Montreal for the Diversity Festival, we made a special stop here. And I was curious to know if you would say that health equity varies from province to province in Canada. So I'm originally from Montreal, but I wanted to know if there is a difference in health equity from province to province.
I would personally say yes, 100%, because, we are a very diverse nation, Canada, right? So if you see Peel is different. Again, within Peel, there are differences, right? I had that opportunity to go to Montreal twice. So when I went there first time, I think 2002, I was amazed because even the signboards were in French. Now I did a crash course in French before coming here, and my dad used to work with French people in the Middle East. So I could read, but I cannot understand everything. So that's diversity. So again, language, resources. So you see, that's there. So like I said, every community's needs are different, and province to province, it does varies, right? Transportation system, weather, I would say. Everything is a social determinant. Income level, neighborhoods. I think I don't know a lot of, I don't have a lot of information about the insurance plans, but we have OHIP. I think in other provinces, and you guys can tell me better, I don't know, Alberta or somewhere, they have to pay something for their health. I'm not sure. So, there are definitely differences. There are differences, yeah.
Well, that's good to know the difference. I mean, I finally got my OHIP card because I'm now a Toronto resident, but it's been very different from what I'm used to. So So I look forward to looking more into that, because I think it's important that, I think that's another thing. We don't take advantage of all the resources we have available. That's important.
Yeah. Yeah, and then different cultures, different cultural practices, right? Say, for example, in certain cultures, when you talk about gender roles and expressions and all that, right? Certain cultures, especially South Asian, some of the South Asian females are not allowed to express themselves even in front of family doctors. They are not allowed to make decisions about their health, right? I've seen so many examples around that. Mental health, especially, or sometimes it's the flip side, like they get too much help. Suppose in a family where there's domestic violence, and so if the woman is the victim and she needs help for mental health, she goes for help. But technically, the husband or the partner needs help for the mental health. So there are so many layers to these things. I've witnessed so many stories, right? Again, I remember one female. She 10 years back, she wanted to have a baby, and couple had some issues, so they went to a fertility clinic. And at that time, 10 years back, there was nothing covered to OIP, right? So they were asked for like $10,000. So they were not able to pay. So they still don't have. I think they went back home or something. I don't know the rest of the story. And there were cultural barriers. The woman was not comfortable having certain kinds of tests with a male doctor. So again, that's a social determinant. And then language is a huge social determinant, right? I remember helping a lady who spoke Urdu through. So my counselor took me in because my counselor could speak English only. So we went there, and when the lady saw me talking in Urdu, she opened up to me, and here we were helping her with her palliative diagnosis. And then she just shared her story about domestic violence. We were shocked when we came out, and I told my counselor that she's going through domestic violence, not physical hitting, but again it was violence, psychological, and all that. It was fourth stage brain cancer. She was dying.
Oh my God.
And my counselor was shocked. She said, her partner, her husband is like so sophisticated and educated and all that. I said, this is what she's telling me. So because we do not help with housing directly, but we connected her with other agencies, she got help with housing. She had 3 kids. And after that, she survived. Like she stayed there for 3 years after being separate from the husband, but she had a 4th stage cancer. She died after 3 years, but she was there for 3 years. So again, language was a barrier, right? So yeah. I can tell you like thousands of stories. I'm a storyteller basically. So
Wow.
Thank you so much for that answer. Thank you.
you're very welcome.
Yeah, no, and it's great. I mean, to hear your experiences through these stories, and unfortunately, the role that you have is a very important one, but I'm sure one that comes with a lot of stress and a lot of, you see people at their worst, right? In a lot of these cases. And so it must be something like, I know it's something personally, I probably wouldn't be able to handle something like that mentally, emotionally, whatever way. But it's such an important thing. And we're so lucky to have people like you doing what you do, because that is so important. Maybe that fact, just someone speaking your language, right? What your mother tongue, that opens up a barrier. Now she feels more free. She feels more at ease. Maybe if that didn't happen, she wouldn't have survived for 3 years in palliative care. She wouldn't have felt that sense of security, and your mind drives the rest of your body. So it's so important that even if with mental health issues, to have that sense of stability, or have that stability provided to you, or be supported by someone else. So thank you for those stories. I'm sure that will really help viewers connect with what we're discussing here, and also just for opening our eyes and ears to that as well. Are there any more questions for Asma? I think you've covered everything, and thank you so much again. We really appreciate it. Really are grateful for you taking the time out to be here with us. And thank you once again for your stories and your insight and sharing your experiences.
Thank you.
My pleasure. You're very, very welcome. Oh, I was muted there for a second. Sorry about that, everyone. Up next, we have Lynne McIntee, who's going to be our second panelist. And for those of you who have watched previous panel discussions, Lynne has been part of them and has been a great a great participant in these discussions to just fuel more conversation, and she's been such a great support to have in these panels. But today, we're very excited that Lynne is actually going to be on our panel, and she has done a lot. Lynne McIntee has taught English to children and adults, including the study of global citizenship and designing programs for international participants. She is also a community reporter for a local television program and has worked in the arts through theater, radio, voiceovers, film and television, including musicals and community opera, in the roles of actor, singer, producer, publicist, community outreach, casting, and co-directing. That's a lot of hats right there. Lynne is delighted to join the team at Moksha Canada Foundation and this year's Diversity Festival Canada. So with great pleasure, I'd like to welcome Lynne McIntee.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here once again this week, and thank you for letting me be on the panel today.
Our pleasure. We're super excited to have you here, as we did in the past weeks, but are even more excited this week to have you on our panel. So thank you so much for taking the time out to be here. You have a very, for those of you who haven't seen Lynne in the panels or haven't tuned into the panels, Lynne has very vibrant energy, and she's great to speak with. So I'm looking forward to our discussion. Before we get started here with our questions for you, Lynne, you have done a lot of things. How did you get into this, and what would you say? What took you to wearing all these different hats and taking on all these different roles? And is there something that is your favorite, or do you like all of them? And maybe I'll let you elaborate a little bit more on that.
I love absolutely all of them, and I feel like one thing led to another. I humbly arrive on the panel today, and I think where it all started for me really was working in teaching international students and exploring what it means to be a world citizen. So working with international students, newcomers, and landed immigrants and survivors of trauma coming into a program in Canada. I feel like it was such a humble environment for me and such a learning and growing opportunity. I literally humbly arrived on the scene every day, and it allowed me to grow as a person, as a human being, as a citizen. And in turn, I was able to invite other people in as well in the community and allow them to experience those things as well. So for me, that truly was sort of the beginning point, and led into all these other things, whether it be in the arts or other parts of my life. But it really started with teaching, but I think we're all teachers of life. But yes, teaching English to newcomers, and that was my connection to the human spirit. And that led me into many other areas, such as the arts and doing Afghani Radio Hour, or inviting someone to come in and use their voice in another avenue. Maybe they wouldn't have had an opportunity before. So that, for me, was just so empowering, just lifting the whole community up. And I just really wanted to just keep that going, that momentum going in all parts of my life.
Wow, that's great. That's amazing. And I think, in terms of the arts, I'm a musician and a producer. So looking at your involvement in the arts is something that I really, just took an interest to. It kind of stuck out in my mind. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I think what you say, I feel a lot of personal connection to, where, one thing will lead into another and lead into another. And it's great because it really gives you that you get the big picture that way. Otherwise, sometimes, you can hone in on something, but you don't really get that full picture unless you kind of dive into all those areas and really discover what it means to be an actor versus a singer versus a producer, and how those roles are different from each other, but how they all come together to create something a lot larger. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we have a few questions for you in regards to access and equity. How can human services organizations adopt accessibility framework? And also, what are some of the best practices and models when it comes to accessibility?
Thank you for the question. I appreciate that. I'm working in all the different areas that we spoke about. think it really is firstly important to really look at the bigger picture, and looking at a sort of a macro level sort of type of framework and how we could do that as an organization. And you really want to try and define the terms of accessibility, being in the short term and the long term goals, right? And it's as there's not one plan for everybody, but in the same sense, we do have to adopt that as an organization to do so in order to have enabling for successful for our citizens. I think defining it at a grassroots level is very important in the context of all aspects of life and throughout Canada and the world, but directly in our communities as well. I think, in other words, really just laying out a plan for enabling ways for economic independence and direct empowerment for full engagements of our citizens. That's sort of where the core starts, really. And how do we welcome all stakeholders to the table? I think that was a reference we were using in the different panels each week. Is everyone welcome at the table? Does someone recognize a place for them? And if there's not a place, if they feel like there's not a place for them, then how can we open up that door for them, whether it be a translation of something or mental health support, a health support, and any other way to do that. And I think that people need to know that there's an inclusion in our workspace and our work duties and our work value. By including everyone, it raises the value of an organization, it raises the value of the country and the community, it raises the value of us as people and as a family, because really, truly, we are one world, one people, right? And how do we prosper as human citizens, right? So I just wrote some other notes. I just want to make sure I remember everything I want to say.
Yeah, no, that's great. That was amazing, and thank you so much for even tying in, past discussions that we had in these panel discussions. That was a very important topic that we discussed, or subtopic, is of diversity and inclusion. Is everyone at the table? And even if you're at the table, are you speaking up? Are you being heard? Are you being listened to? And taking these initiatives on a grassroots level is really what's going to make them seep into everyday life, everyday conversation, as opposed to being, okay, let's talk about this right now and forget about it. So I really think that that's important, and there's a lot of value to what you just mentioned. So thank you very much for that. We also have another question for you, Lynne. What policy framework has Canada adopted to offer equitable and accessible services to its residents, citizens, and community at large?
Well, I'm aware of the Canada Act, the Accessible Canada Act, and I think that's very important that we have implemented that and really brought that forward. And particularly the line 5 goals that are really important for Canada and our communities across the country. And I'll just define them right now. And goal number 1 would be to improve recruitment for people and retention and promotion of persons, whether it be with disabilities or just making it accessible for everyone, the inclusion aspect of things. A second goal might be to enhance the accessibility in the built environment for people, so that we feel welcome at the table and such, right? And making that information as available in communication and technology, which we had spoken about before. Making the translations available to people. And I know working in that field as well, the health aspect is so important, whether you're delivering a baby at home, or you're delivering a baby at the hospital, or you're needing to access mental health education for your child, or whichever. It's so important that you can go at it 100% and know that you're being valued and supported and validated for your needs. And equipping our social servants really with the ability to be able to receive that and know how to respond on the other end. Very, very important. It's one thing to have someone in that position, but maybe not understand the process would be very difficult for someone approaching at it without someone being equipped with their own knowledge internally within the organization. That is very important also. And that's something Canada has adopted as well. They're focusing on a 5th goal, and that's building accessibility and confidence in the public service. So getting the education out there that, yes, it is accessible and available to everybody, and not to be frightened sort of the unknowns, and knowing that if there's something that you do need, you can communicate that, and someone will try to take it to the next step, because it really does have to start somewhere. Maybe need is not known yet. Maybe we have to create that and eliminate that void. And how do we do that? But the only way we can do that is if we all come to the table and we all voice it and use our voices as citizens, whether we're new to the country, new to the community, whichever. Very, very important. And then that kind of speaks to internalizing, making it sort of specific to communities. Because the Calgary, Alberta, or might be very, very different. So who assesses that, and who assesses it, and how do we implement it from there? So Canada's adopting that policy, and with Bill C-81, I think that's very evident that as a country we're united in trying to bring that forward to eliminate barriers for people.
Wow, great! That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing those insights, and very true. I mean, even just one thing that stuck out in my mind that you had mentioned is language. And that kind of ties into Asma's experiences that she was sharing, right? As soon as being a speaker of multiple languages, once she was able to connect with the patient on that level, it opened up so many barriers and opened up so many doors. And with Canada being such a multicultural society, I mean, just in Vaughan, where I live, there's something like 198 languages or plus spoken. And it's amazing, but at the same time, that gives us the idea that, you know, for 198 languages, we should have some kind of access given to those people who may only speak a particular language out of those 198. That patient's very fortunate that, you know, they had someone like Asma who was able to speak and connect with them in Urdu, but there's 198 languages. I don't even think I can list 198 languages, right? So having something put in place, documentation maybe, once you kind of get your demographics and you know the statistics of your population, and maybe this can be done on a regional or even smaller micro level. Once you know the demographics of and the statistics of what your demographic looks like, you know, maybe have in place in hospitals a booklet with everything you need to know laid out in different languages, and try to make it a one-pager. So you flip through 198 pages and all those languages are now represented. So if someone doesn't speak something, at least someone can go out and have that equal opportunity to gain that knowledge or gain that which they need to learn but are not able to understand it otherwise. I think language is definitely a big one with us being such a diverse place. And even something else that, you know, Asma had mentioned as well, when she came to Montreal, she was surprised to find everything is in French. I've been coming back and forth to Montreal a few times now, and that gets me every time. I did not pay as much attention as I should have in grade 9 French. And I thought, you know, grade 10, I don't need to take it anymore. Why would I do this? Well, now I know. And for someone like me, if I was here, I know people are able to speak English in Montreal, you know, more or less, I guess, or to a higher degree or lower degree, depending on where you go specifically. But because everything is in French, I immediately find myself kind of all closed up as well. When I'm driving on the road, I'm like, oh no, what does this mean? I don't know where I'm going. And it's that idea of if you're driving and you have no idea where you're going, having someone or something that can help steer you in the right direction is going to be really important, especially on, you know, when we discuss healthcare services or really anything. That's going to be such an important factor. And I've studied French for, I don't know, 9 years of my life, but I still feel such a disconnect there. So imagine someone who's brand new to the country, doesn't speak a word of English, maybe other than hello or no English, and imagine how that would feel for them. So I think opening up those doors by having these conversations on a grassroots level and really opening up the language barriers for people would go a long way, for sure.
It's interesting, if I just can interject for just a moment. And
Please.
Thank you so much. If you even just look at the crossover into the arts, for example, as opposed to survival language, if you will, right? Making the arts accessible for all, and how rich will it be if we're able to do so? So, for example, if somebody is new to a community, they maybe don't have access to it because they don't understand that this is available to them. How can we shine light on that opportunity to enhance their their welcome to the community, if you will. How can we help them to contribute in some other way? Even if they are dealing with a language barrier, there's another way to include them and those kind of things, programs that are available, accessibility for mental health and such, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Does anybody... Oh, sorry, go ahead. I think we have a question from Nadia for Lynne.
I was just going to add that it's really an eye-opener because we don't always think about these things, but my grandmother, she's actually going through this right now where she has to do a lot of visits at the hospital and to the doctor, and she says to me, oh my gosh, I don't understand the doctor. I don't understand what he's saying to me because she speaks Italian fluent, and so her French and her English is not very good. So it really makes people pull back and they don't feel comfortable. And I feel like if there was a way to implement a new way to like you mentioned, a translator, documents, something that could really help, because it is something that's really important and going on, I'm sure, for many others, not just my grandmother, of course. So this was really interesting perspective, languages, how important they are.
Very true.
And how do we level the playing field for the human heart, right? Because that's really what we're looking to do.
Oh, that's a good... Yeah, Lynne, for those of you who haven't tuned in, Lynne should write some Hallmark cards or something, because like she has some one-liners that just hit you and you're like, oh, that was awesome. Sorry, Lynne, what was that you just said right there?
I've already forgotten.
That was awesome. I think we just got to get
She said how to level. She said how to level the playing field for the human heart.
Oh, that's what it. There it is. Yeah, that's gold right there. That's gold. Yeah, Lynne, if you ever to add on one more hat, maybe give Hallmark a call. They'd be lucky to have you.
Well, we are so lucky to have you as well today because you are so well spoken and you have such great insight as well. And we're so lucky to have everybody here on the panel. Asma, Anu, Neil, of course, you're here too, doing a great job as moderator.
Thank you. And of course, we have Sunil here as well. He's representing Moksha Canada right here. And thank you to everyone who's been part of these discussions. Does anybody else have any more questions for Lynne?
I just have a comment. I was listening to you when you said 198 languages, and I was like, wow, right? So, like, anybody can, we cannot learn 198 languages, but, if we could have some trainings around cultural sensitivity, right, and try to understand different cultures. And I'll quickly tell you, it's not a horror story, but it's like not a very happy story. I remember this story at a local hospital here, but there was this Sikh gentleman, and he had his beard and everything, and a lot of us know that it's sacred, but the hospital, the staff there was extremely nice, but did not have that cultural awareness. And the guy was palliative, senior gentleman, and she cut his beard because it was a hindrance in feeding him. And when the family came, he was half conscious, unconscious, and everybody was crying. They said, sorry, I'm using the word kill, but they said, you killed him before he died. Because it was lack of cultural sensitivity. Or, like trying to celebrate birthdays for Jehovah's Witnesses, right? Lack of cultural sensitivity. So even if we are not able to learn, and it's impossible to learn so many languages, at least learn about different cultures living in Canada and then be respectful of that. And what we did at our local hospice, I designed a program where we are doing end-of-life ritual series in different faith communities and cultures. So I'm inviting speakers from Jehovah's Witness and Zoroastrian and Muslim and Sikh and Christian, right? And then this bunch of, people, so we could learn from each other. And, so learn about different cultures, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That is such a great thing. That's really great. And to hear it from the source themselves, right? When they're speaking, that really lets you in on their process and their belief system so that we can adapt our systems to at least, if not to completely understand, because yes, that's going to be way too much or too ambitious for sure, because each one of these cultures are so broad and far-reaching, but at least to be aware of those things that'll affect that particular profession. For example, the cutting of the beard. Yeah, I can imagine for a Sikh family that's going to be awful, right? And they definitely weren't expecting that, but from the perspective of a person who has no idea, they were just trying to actually help. And so, and there's that big disconnect where even with complete pure intentions, you may be doing something that is the opposite. So having that awareness, or that baseline awareness of, okay, if we are going to proceed to do A, let's just make sure that we do, X, Y, Z, so that we we don't end up overstepping or doing something that may be culturally insensitive.
It's
That's a great point.
Uh, you mentioned, sorry, just briefly, even for someone not understanding, it could be very simple, as you said. It could be someone thinking, just gesturing and tapping someone on the shoulder, but even just that touch could be very invasive to some, or a handshake, for example. Maybe that's not appropriate. Very important, and I think it starts at the beginning of life and the end of life, going back to what Asma said, in terms of the circle of life and when one ends their life. I think it's very important. The education starts with the young, and I think moving forward, this is an exciting time for us to really, really get it together, and really enjoy this. And I think at the beginning of life, we can educate our young, and as we move through our life and choose professions, hopefully all of those things will be in place, and it'll just come naturally for some, right?
Yeah, that would be, definitely a great goal to work towards. And I think, we can see the progress in every decade, really, right? Every decade you can see how much farther we move along. Whereas even just representation of different cultures, through grocery stores or through the types of food you can get. I mean, when I was growing up in the 90s, you may, in certain cultural pockets, where there's a specific culture that's more dominant than another, okay, you're going to see those types of restaurants and those types of stores and those types of services. But these days, more and more, you see such an intermingling. And I love it. It's great because that is what's going to open others up to cultures other than their own. If you go to an area where it's culturally dominant with a certain culture, and everything is just that pocket of it. Sure, if that's not your culture, you're gonna have your eyes more open to that. But that's one of 198 or more. So how do we move that farther? I think this intermingling that we're seeing a lot more, where there's a Chinese restaurant beside an Indian restaurant, beside a pho place, I always go back to food because I love food, but that's what it is, right? Where when you can see all these cultures represented around you, in your neighborhood, in your subdivision, on your block, that's when we're really gonna get more of an understanding and awareness of it. And I think that we are, making slow but steady progress in that direction. And if you look, back even just for me, in the 1990s when I was growing up to the early 2000s to now, there's such a difference and there's such a push forward. So I do also feel that the future is very bright.
Yes.
It's kind of nice to actually be able to spend time in a room with someone, and sometimes the language is not necessary. It's body language, and you're spending time with that person. It's a moment of time with them, and maybe there's another way, a spoken language, pardon me, is not necessary sometimes. Just being with the person, being comfortable with the space.
Non-verbal, yeah.
Very true. And I think that's a very great point as well, and I think whatever way you can make a connection to gain deeper understanding, do it by all means. For myself, the way that I've found that I do that is through music. And one of my favorite things to do is jam with people from all around the world that I can't communicate with. Because if I can't speak to them, the music pathways are going to be super pure. I'm not saying, hey, and it's going to be spontaneous and fun. I'm not going to tell them, hey, I'm doing this, I'm going to play it like this, because I can't even explain it to them. So they're going to hear what I'm doing, and they're going to just naturally, gravitate to it or bounce back with their own perspective. And for example, I've done this with a lot of West African musicians from places like Burkina Faso, and the Ivory Coast and Ghana. And it's amazing because we can't speak one word to each other, but we don't really need to. And those are some of my favorite people to play music with, because it's just purely that, and we can connect without saying a word to each other. And I think you learn so much subconsciously as well from doing that. And it's, at least from my own perspective, it's opened me up to these styles of music, and you gain such a wider appreciation, and that appreciation leads you to go seek out that information, right? Once I had this jam session, once I got into African music, then I started going on Wikipedia and on Google and finding out more and more. And through that, I found out about the customs and the traditions and the culture. And then it just kept on opening up. And I don't know everything about it, but it's that initial connection led to such a wider appreciation and understanding. So I think that's definitely important. And thank you so much for mentioning that.
When Lynne said that, it actually brought me immediately to a thought about Celine Dion, because they used to say Celine, she could fill up stadiums and people wouldn't even understand her singing. She would sing all around the world because people could just connect with her emotion. And it made me think of that immediately. And I thought, that is so true. You could just sit in a room and just, even what we do with the Diversity Festival, and one of Moksha's missions is to promote multiculturalism through the arts, through music, but through getting to know other cultures and heritages. And it's so important. And I feel like this conversation really reminded me, you brought up food, Neil, but you know what? Next year, we should really highlight different foods, different chefs. We should highlight different, whatever it may be. Like, it's nice to learn about different religions, different ways of life, and slowly we're getting there. We're showing more and more that the world has to offer.
And you can use food to educate people. Predominantly my office people are more mainstream Canadians, and I cook a lot of chicken biryani. I don't know whether you guys know chicken biryani or not, and it is so spicy, but they all love it. So we share different kinds of foods. I'm talking about pre-COVID, right? So somebody would bring this guacamole. I did not know what guacamole was, and I bought this chicken biryani. But now I have to cook this big pan, like this huge pan. I said, no, you guys are like 25, 26 people. It's a lot of work. But then, so they love the food. So through food and spices and ingredients, there's so much education and awareness, I feel that as a global community, there are less differences amongst ourselves and more similarities that could bring us all together. Yeah.
Very true and very well said. I completely agree. I mean, I love food and I love learning about different food. It's like what I studied. The reason I studied music is you're using music as a vehicle to actually study other cultures, right? So African music, Indian music, Latin American music, Cuban music. By studying all those things, it didn't stop at the music, but I was so lucky that I got to dive into the cultures as well. And that, for me, was equally enriching. And so food does the same thing, right? Going to different places, or even on YouTube, for example. I love watching shows where people travel around the world and try different food from different places. And what you find, sure, some local ingredients may be different, but for the most part, we all use the same food, and maybe we throw a few different spices in, but those are the spices that make us different, but make us appreciate what spices are down there, or because we don't do it that way. And there's so much more, there's new flavors, right? And really that's what it's about, is embracing and accepting the new flavors and making sure that all those flavors are accounted for.
Neil, maybe next year you could cook something for the audience at home. You could show how much
you know what?
Food.
Hopefully next year, this is one of the things I love about these Moksha Canada Diversity Festivals as well, when we're doing it in person, because this year, this online festival and this panel discussion has been amazing, and I've really been happy to be a part of it. But one thing I do miss, I have to say, is with the Diversity Festival, we had all different types of food at these festivals. So we had like Hawaiian shaved ice one time. We had the biryani was awesome. We had shawarma. We had Indian food. We had you name it, it was there. We had so many different things. And whenever, I know, Nadia, you and I, we were on the stage, but whenever there was like a time when I knew, okay, this artist is going to be performing a long set, I ran over, got myself some food, and it was, you know, through the day, I was able to eat so many different things. It was awesome.
I just want to say something, guys. That's why you're missing all the time from the stage, going for a food.
No. I was eating that stuff backstage. I was running to and from the stage. No, we all gotta eat. Maybe I eat a little bit more during.
I remember the butter chicken. I remember that.
Butter chicken. Everybody loves butter chicken, though. Everybody loves butter chicken. I love butter chicken. Yeah, so basically, that's it. So we're gonna keep adding these new elements to our festival, and I feel that the online festival really gave us a new opportunity, because I don't feel like a panel discussion would hit the stage, but I think next year, I think it's a big possibility. Right, Sunil?
Already working on it.
You see? But we wouldn't, you wouldn't picture that, but it's something that I feel is so enriching, and all these conversations have been so helpful for many at home, I'm sure, and it's just, bringing new awareness to everything.
That's the main reason for us to do the Diversity Festival, to bring all the communities together, connect each other, learn about whatever you think you know. No, come and learn. There are so many ways to learn each other. That's the reason we do the Diversity Festival. Right, guys?
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Of course. So, Sunil has, he doesn't always come on the video, but he is here, and it's a cause that's very close to his heart, and that's why he is the founder of the Moksha Canada Foundation. And if you would meet him, you would see how much he cares about everyone, and how much he cares about equality, and making sure everybody feels welcome. Everybody feels, welcome on the stage, whether they're beginners, whether they're, professionals. He lets everybody speak at the festivals, because everybody has a voice, and he really has an open mind, an open heart. And I just want to say thank you to you for that. Maybe he left.
Nadia, that's the reason you're the part of the team. Because of you guys, all of you guys actually, making it success like over this panel. Lynne, Anu, Neil, Asma, everybody's part of the Diversity Festival today, especially. And that's what it makes a difference, right?
The family, the Moksha Canada family.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sunil. Sunil, we got lucky this panel. Sunil doesn't usually say anything, so this is a big deal. This is a big deal. Sunil's always there, but he's like the crew. They do a very important work, but you never see them on screen. But we got lucky this time, and we got to hear from Sunil as well. So thank you so much, Sunil, for providing your insight as well, and your just discussing about the foundation and why we do this festival in the first place. Thanks so much for Nadia for those points as well, and thank you to everybody that has been part of this discussion today. Anu, thank you so much. Lynne, thank you very much for your insights and experiences, and of course Asma, thank you so much for sharing your amazing stories and for providing such great insight on these areas. And
well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Yeah.
Oh, it's been our pleasure, and it's been amazing having you here. So again, on behalf of the Moksha Canada Foundation and Sunil and Nadia and myself, thank you so much, everybody, for being here and making this discussion what it is, and just providing such an enriching platform to just give insight to other people and really open up this discussion further. So I think that concludes our discussion for today.
We're going to be taking a fun photo before we leave, but I just want to tell our audience at home to make sure to tune in next week, because we will be doing our final panel discussion, and it will be recapping all of our panel discussions.
So for those of you who didn't tune in to one of our discussions, Be sure to tune in next week because we're going to give you a quick recap on all 4 discussions and how to move forward. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Until then, bye.